Greetings and welcome to Train Signal. You're watching Installing Lync Server 2013. In this video presentation, we will see how to install Microsoft Lync servers. So whether you're installing the Standard Edition or the Enterprise Edition pools, we'll see the process involved for performing the install. When we go to install our Lync 2013 servers, we run the installation from inside of the Lync 2013 Deployment Wizard. Now, the Deployment Wizard can be installed onto a machine, but when you run the setup for Lync 2013 off of your installation media, it will bring you into the Deployment Wizard. The installation process for Lync is going to be broken down into different pieces. First of all, you have to pull a local copy of your configuration store. And then we'll run the installation of Lync where we actually install the various components. After that, we have to install certificates on the server, and then we start up the services and verify that the services and the server is working the way that it's supposed to be. At Carve Fitness, we're using the Enterprise Edition of Microsoft Lync. So we've published our topology to a back-end SQL server running SQL Server 2008 R2. So the first step for us is going to be installing the local configuration store and pulling a copy of CMS so that we have our local copy. Before you can install Lync on one of the servers within your environment, that server has to have a copy of CMS. And the Deployment Wizard has a step that will allow us to pull a copy of CMS and also install a local version of SQL Server 64-bit Express Edition. Now, if you were installing the Standard Edition of Microsoft Lync, you would have already prepared your local server with a copy of SQL 64-bit Express Edition so that you could have published CMS to your local instance of SQL. So your Deployment Wizard has an extra step in case you were deploying Standard. But we don't have to worry about that. What level of access do we have to have in order to accomplish this task? Well, on the local server that is going to be your Lync server, you've got to be a local administrator. And inside of your Microsoft Lync infrastructure, you would have to be an RTC Universal Read-Only admin at a minimum. As we go to join our server, Carve Fitness Frontend 2, to our Lync environment, this server currently does not have SQL Server installed on it. As part of the installation process, when I pull a local copy of CMS to the machine, you'll see on screen during the demonstration that the SQL 64-bit Express Edition will install automatically as part of the install process. So when my server maintains its local read-only copy of CMS, it is being maintained inside of SQL. We also should remember that inside of the topology builder, we've already defined our central management server, which is in charge of handling the replication of the read-only copies out to the different servers participating in your Lync environment. In this demonstration, you'll see how to install the local configuration store on your soon-to-be Microsoft Lync server. In this demonstration, we're going to see how to install a local copy of the central management store onto my soon-to-be Microsoft Lync 2013 server. In order to kick off the installation process for Lync, we have to mount the installation media. Now, I have the DVD mounted on my D drive, so let's switch over to my D drive and take a look. From inside of the install media, we'll go to Setup, AMD64, and then we'll kick off the setup. Now, before I go through the installation, if you don't have the Microsoft Visual C++ redistributable package installed, you may see a prompt that pops up on the screen that requests that you install it, and you would have to verify that. Here I'm being prompted for the location for the installation files, so any future components that I install will go to the Program Files, Microsoft Lync Server 2013 directory. Let's click on Install. Then we accept our licensing agreement. Click OK. And here you can see that my core components are being installed. And then once they're installed successfully, my Deployment Wizard should launch for me automatically. Now, if this was the first time you've come into the Deployment Wizard, you would have to prepare your Active Directory environment for the installation of Lync. Now, I've already done this, but if this was your first attempt, you would have to go to Prepare Active Directory. Step number 1, you extend your Active Directory schema, which adds new object and attribute classes to your Active Directory environment, and that has to be run by a top-level AD administrator, a schema admin. Step number 3 prepares your current forest by creating universal security groups that are used by role-based access control to define your level of access. And then you have to define the permissions model with any domain that has Lync installed and any domains being serviced by Microsoft Lync. So when you prep your domains, it defines the access control list entries within that domain so that Microsoft Lync can do its job. Now, as you can see, this has been completed already. When I close out of this console here, if I wanted to launch into the deployment wizard, you can see that I now have a shortcut for it. When you launch the deployment wizard, it will verify your current deployment state and wants to see how your server in your environment is currently set up. Now, if I was setting up a first-time Standard Edition server, you would have to prepare your first Standard Edition server and install SQL Server 64-bit Express Edition on that box before you push a local copy of CMS down to it. At Carverock Fitness, we don't have to worry about this because we're using the Enterprise Edition of Lync with multiple servers in a pool. What we need to do is install or update the Lync server system. Again, it checks my deployment state. You'll notice that the deployment wizard walks you through the install step by step. In step number 1, we have to install a copy of the local configuration store. So in this case, I'll click on Run. You'll see that we have two choices. You can retrieve a copy of CMS directly from CMS, and that requires read access to your central management store. We can also import this topology information from a file, and that's what you would do when you're setting up an edge server out in your DMZ, because that's a standalone machine that wouldn't have access. Let's click on Next. Here you can see that my server is checking to verify that I have all of my prerequisites set, and now it's installing various MSIs, Windows Installer files. You'll notice that my system has checked a lot of the prerequisites to make sure that I have PowerShell, the Windows Identity Foundation, and also that I have a local instance of SQL where I can replicate CMS2, so I have my local read-only copy. Now I can see that my system is forcing a replication, and then we're done. And if you had any problems during the installation process of your CMS, what you could do at this point is view your log to see what went wrong. Again, we didn't have any problems, so my log is very anticlimactic. But you can see the structure of how it's laid out, and it's very easy to navigate. Let's click on Finish. Now, before we move on to the installation of the Lync server components, let's take a look at what's involved with that. Now that we have seen how to install a copy of CMS down into our local configuration store, let's turn our attention to installing the front-end server. In order to install the server, you have to, at a minimum, be in the RTC Universal Read-Only Admins group inside of Microsoft Lync, and you also have to be a local administrator on the box that you're installing Lync onto. The tool that we're going to use to install Lync is your Lync Server Deployment Wizard. Just as we have seen to install CMS, we had to use the Lync Deployment Wizard. Well, we're going to use that same exact tool to install the components. Keep in mind that the installation of Lync is going to be very hands-off, because as the installation runs, your server will look to your local copy of CMS to see how it's supposed to be installed. It's kind of like a scripted install, but instead of using a script file, your server looks to the local copy of CMS to see how it's supposed to be set up. In this next demonstration, we're going to see how to install the front-end servers from inside of the deployment wizard. In this demonstration, we're going to pick back up inside of our deployment wizard, right where we left off. Step number 2, we look at setting up or removing Lync server components. Now, we're not concerned with removing components, we're going to set them up. As you remember, that I had mentioned that when you go through the installation, the install of the actual components will seem like a scripted install. But instead of using a scripted install file that tells your product how to install the components, it looks to your local copy of CMS, which we've already installed, as you can see here, as being completed. So when I click on Run to set up my Lync server components, this should be a very hands-off process. Here I'm going to click on Next. Here you can see that my server is checking to make sure that I have the necessary prerequisites. And then we're finished. Now, if you had encountered any errors during the install process, you would click on View Log, and you would be able to navigate through this web-based log very easily and see where there may have been a problem. But we're all set. Let's close that out. and then click on Finish. Now that we've installed Microsoft Lync Server 2013, our next step is to install certificates on the Lync server. Whether you're installing the Standard Edition, the Enterprise Edition, or dedicated servers in a pool, or even servers out in your DMZ like an Edge server, these servers require certificates for secure connections between clients and servers. In order to install a certificate on your Lync server, at a minimum you have to be a member of the RTC Universal Server Admins Group. When you install certificates on Lync servers, we can use private certificates and also public certificates. Well, public certificates are typically used for external connectivity. But when you're using private certificates, these can be used inside of your organization as long as they are trusted by your servers and your clients that are connecting. Well, what are some of the basic certificate requirements? Well, first of all, server certificates must support server-based authorization. And your certificates also have to contain a certificate revocation list, which is identified in the certificate itself. So inside of your certificate, there's a path to gain access to the certificate revocation list distribution point. If you want to push out certificates using auto-enrollment, that is supported on your internal servers, assuming that we've set up an enterprise certificate authority. Because your servers out in your DMZ, the Edge servers, they're not part of Active Directory, they're typically standalone machines, so those servers will not be able to get certificates on their internal interface through auto-enrollment. And if you're not familiar with auto-enrollment, your machine can power up, and through Active Directory, a GPO can push a certificate down to your machine. Well, with the Edge server, it's out in the DMZ and it's not part of AD, so there's no policy pushing down certificates to that box. Now, the minimum key length that we can use with our certificates is 1024. Microsoft supports 1024, 2048, and 4096. Now, when it comes to our hashing algorithm, the default hashing algorithm is RSA. Microsoft also supports ECDH, P256, P384, and P521 hashing algorithms. When you request a certificate for your Microsoft Lync server, you typically want to get certificates that support subject alternative names. A Lync server will typically have to support several different names for connectivity. We will have to support server-to-server-based connectivity, client-to-server-based connectivity, the name of the pool, the name of the server, and we also have to support our web URL used for internal and external connectivity. All of this can be included in a single certificate. As I go through my demonstration, you'll also notice that Microsoft has added a new certificate which is used for open authorization, and that is used for authentication between your servers, including Microsoft Exchange. In this next demonstration, we'll see how to install certificates on the Microsoft Lync Server 2013 front-end server. In this next demonstration, we're going to install and assign certificates to the Microsoft Lync server. So we're going to pick up right where we left off with the prior demo. Step number 3, requesting, installing, or assigning a certificate. So here, I'm going to click on Run, and this will launch a certificate installation wizard. Now, you'll notice that I have the ability to define my default certificate, and below the default certificate, we have the Open Authorization Token Issuer certificate. So here, let's start off with our default certificate. We'll click on Request. Now, this is my internal Lync server, and I am going to use a certificate from a private trusted CA within my environment. So as I click on Next, I'm going to send the request immediately to the online CA. Now, if I was requesting an external certificate from a provider, I would prepare the request now but send it later. We'll click on Next, and then you'll see here that I'm able to auto-discover my internal private certificate authority. This is an enterprise CA that's advertising its presence inside of Active Directory. We'll click on Next again. Now, as I request my certificate, I specify the credentials that I want to use. Now, I'm logged on as the enterprise admin, so I don't need to provide additional credentials. I can also specify if I want to use an alternate template type. I'm going to provide a friendly name for my certificate. I'll call my Lync 2013 internal, and my bit length is 2048, and because I'm setting up a pool, I would typically mark that certificate as being exportable, so that I could install it on other servers within the pool. My organization is Carve Rock Fitness. and my organizational unit is IT. Here we provide our country code, our state, and my city or locale, which is Scottsdale. Now you'll notice that my system has detected what I've published inside of CMS with all the additional namespaces. Again, you want to make sure that you have a certificate that supports subject alternative names. Up above you can see that I have my configured SIP domain, carverockfitness.com, and if you had any other additional namespaces you would typically see them showing up here on the list. If you need to provide any additional subject alternative names that were not provided, here you can provide this within the interface. Now I'm all set with the names that I have, but keep in mind what I would be using as my guide for this is the Lync Server 2013 planning tool. It allows you to define information inside of a wizard, and it will generate reports for you regarding your DNS requirements, your certificate, and your firewall requirements. So it takes a lot of the mental effort out of creating the design in a lot of key areas that can be very troublesome for administrators. When I click on Next, I'm now requesting a certificate, and when I click on Next and Finish, my system will then prompt me to install that certificate, or to assign it. So here you can see I have the certificate assignment wizard. We'll click on Next, Next again, and then we'll click on Finish. The second certificate that we see in the console is the Open Authorization Token Issuer Certificate. This certificate is used to authenticate Microsoft Lync servers to each other, and it's also used to authenticate Microsoft Lync and Microsoft Exchange. When you install this certificate on one of your servers, the certificate gets installed into CMS, and it's replicated to all the Microsoft Lync servers within your environment, so they all have knowledge of this certificate. Let's see how to install the Open Authorization Certificate. Click Next. I'm going to send the request immediately to my online CA, which I've auto-discovered. Now for the friendly name, we'll provide Open Authorization, so let's type in a new name here. Again, the bit length of 2048 is supported. My organization is Carverock Fitness, and my organizational unit is IT. Here I have my country region, state province, and city locality. And as you can see, it's making it easy on me because it's pulling the information from my prior certificate request. Here we'll click on Next. I do not need to provide any additional subject alternative names. We'll click on Next again, and then we will request the certificate. And then once again, once I request that certificate, my system will prompt me to assign that certificate to my server. Now keep in mind that this certificate will actually get stored in CMS, and any server that pulls or replicates a copy of CMS will have a local copy of this certificate that they use for open authorization. And then we're going to close out. Now that we have Microsoft Lync Server installed, and we've also installed certificates, the next step is to start up the services on your Lync server. And once again, we have an option inside of the deployment wizard that allows us to start up all of our services in an automated fashion. In order to start up your services, at a minimum, you have to be a member of the RTC Universal Server Admins Group. Well, now that we've done all the work, let's start up the services. Let's take a look at a demonstration. In our next demonstration, we're going to pick right back up where we left off with our prior demo. We're on step number 4, which is starting the services. If you click on the button to run, it initiates a start request for all of your Lync services, and then you would typically go in and verify that your services have started up. So let's click on Run, then Next, click on Finish, and it's that easy. So then what we would normally do is go take a look to make sure that our services have started. Now that our Lync 2013 server is up and running, the next thing we have to do is test our deployment. Now one of the first things that we have to do is to assign an administrator to the CSadministrator's role. Well, how do we do this? Inside of Active Directory's users and computers, we have to add our Lync administrator to the CSadministrator's Universal Security Group. The next logical step would be verifying that Lync is working. We take a look at our services, make sure that your services are installed and that they're started up. And then you want to test connectivity from your control panel. So you can go into your control panel and perform regular administration tests. So you can enter through your administration console or your Lync server management shell, and you can invoke several commandlets or perform certain actions, such as creating a user account. As a common test, you would typically enable users for Lync and then connect to your Lync server and make sure that it's working the way that it's supposed to be. In this demonstration, we're going to verify that our Lync server is installed correctly and that it's working. Now that we've installed Microsoft Lync server, we've installed valid certificates, and we've started our services. We need to verify that everything's working the way that it's supposed to be. So let's take a look at some of the basic checks. Well, the first thing that I would want to do is to make sure that I start up my services, and we've already done that, but let's verify that they've started successfully, and you'll notice that Microsoft has provided you a nice convenient link inside of your deployment wizard. Now, you could go in through your administrative tools and launch your services applet, but this is a nice little convenient shortcut. We'll go down to our Lync services, and here you can see that I've got a bunch of Lync services, and you can see that they're all set to automatic delayed start, and they're started up successfully, and that's a great sign. The next thing I want to do to verify that things are working okay, I want to go in and I want to take a look at my control panel. But if this is a brand new installation of Microsoft Lync, I want to make sure that I have an administrative account that has been added into the CSadministrators group. So what we're going to do is open up Active Directory's users and computers. And inside of Active Directory's users and computers, we'll go down to our CSadministrators group, go to Members, click on Add, and then Add Administrator. So my administrative account is going to be my CSadministrator, my Lync administrator. We'll click on OK, and then close out of there. Now I want to open up my control panel, and now that I have that necessary level of access, here if I go up to my Lync server control panel, I'll provide my credentials, and then click on OK. So I'm now connecting into the CSCP, which is our Communication Server Control Panel, administrative web-based portal. So again, that's a great sign. So from inside of my control panel, I'll go over to Users. Now if I had users that were already Lync enabled, I could find them. But what I need to do is to enable a user. And then inside of here, I'm going to search for the users that I want to add for Lync. Find. And then I'll pick on one of my users like Anthony Ackerman and click on OK. Now as I create this brand new user, I'm going to define which pool I want to assign that user to. Here I have pool.carverockfitness.com. I'll then specify what format I want to use to generate that user's SIP Uniform Resource Identifier. Now for this demonstration, I'm just going to use the SAM account name at carverockfitness.com. Now at CarveRock Fitness, when we set up our users for Microsoft Lync, we're going to be synchronizing their SIP address with their email address. And the reason why we're going to do that is because we're going to have an external presence on the internet, and it causes less confusion and problems. As I scroll down, you can see that I can also define different types of policies that will be applied directly to this user. I'm okay with that, so let's click on Enable. And as you can see, I was also able to enable a user for Microsoft Lync without a problem. So the next logical step would be connecting with your Lync clients to make sure that your Lync server is working and that your clients are able to connect the way that they're supposed to be. Next, I want to make sure that I can connect over to the Microsoft Lync server using a Lync client, the client that I've enabled for Lync. So I've switched over to my Lync client-based desktop, and here we're going to go to Start, to All Programs, and then down to Microsoft Office 2013, and you can see that I've installed the Lync client. Here, I'm going to connect as my A. Ackerman account at carverockfitness.com, and then we'll put in our password, and then click on Sign In. And there we're connected to the Microsoft Lync server. So it looks like we have a successful install. I hope you've enjoyed the demonstrations, and we'll see you in the next video.